Follow us on social media to learn more.
Greetings, and thank you for attending the 2021 Black Ink Book Festival. This panel is Cultivating and Maintaining Author-Reader Relations. Panelists will discuss how readers can help lift their favorite authors' careers and how authors can make themselves more accessible and available to readers. Okay, I will introduce our panelists, starting with Maya Hollinshead, who is a Charleston County Public Librarian and a mega reader. We also have LaShaunda Lee from Read You Later, and LaShaunda Hoffman, who is a book promotion specialist entrepreneur. And I am your host, moderator, Georgette Mayo. I know that the program says Miss Ruth Rambo, but Miss Ruth Rambo, who is my co-coordinator, moderator with the Dr. Conseula Francis Book Club, is going to be one of our panelists also. And I am Georgette Mayo, who is on the Black Ink Planning Committee Board. I'm also a co-coordinator with the Conseula Francis Book Club and a processing archivist with the Avery Research Center for African American History and Culture. I wear a lot of hats, and gladly so. So we will start with a quote as part of our question. Author John Cheever is quoted by saying, "I can't read without a reader. It is precisely like a kiss. You can't do it alone." Let's start off with a comment from each of our panelists on the essential elements of the relationship between writer and the reader. Maya, can you start us off, please?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. The essential relationship between a writer and a reader is very essential because without one, you cannot have the other. Writers pretty much write to make sure that people read it, and then readers read because they want to find new authors. They want to continue to support their favorite authors, and one can't be without the other. And it's easier now in 2021 because you have so many avenues. Probably 20, 25 years ago, it was just pretty much book signings and seeing the books at the library or in the or in your bookstores. But now with social media and book festivals becoming more popular, there is more interaction between authors and readers.
Thank you. LaShaunda, would you like to weigh in on this?
I think the relationship between an author and a reader is special because it can be a relationship that lasts a lifetime if the author writes many books. I have, as a reader, I have authors that I've been following 25 plus years, and I became friends with them, which is a blessing. Most times when you have authors, you don't really actually become friends with them. You get the books from the library and you read them and then you move on. But some of the authors that I've known and read and enjoyed, I've built relationships with them, and they've taught me how to be a better author and how to treat my readers, because you don't want to take your readers for granted. You think because you put a book out, oh, they're going to buy it. But no, they want a good book and they want you to continue to write a good book. And I think that if you write good books, then you will continue to have readers who stay with you for years and years.
Very true. LaShaunda, would you like to weigh in on this?
Well, good afternoon, sunshines, and thank you for this opportunity to share. My take on it is that the relationship between an author and a reader, it's the essence of our global community. The words, the power, the messages that are spelled out in books have transformed lives, have started businesses, have mended broken hearts, have healed mental illness. So the relationship can be extremely personal, or that relationship, even though it be only by reading that book, is transformational. So the relationship is the essence, I think, of our global community.
Yes, that's very good, very true. Miss Rambo?
Yes, I'm not sure I agree. As much as I love the quote, I'm not sure I agree. I think a writer can be a writer without a reader. I think a writer can write for him or herself, and frequently that's where it starts. And I'm sure that there are manuscripts in attics all over the world where the words never saw the light of day. It's very clear, however, that a reader needs a book. So I think the reader is pretty much dependent on the writer. And I think a good writer certainly does recognize the necessity of if they want to expand their horizon and share all the beautiful, it was beautifully put. My panelists who spoke before me outlined it brilliantly. I think men's broken hearts and sometimes breaks hearts. You know, all of those things happen as a result of the reading. But the responsibility for having the relationship, I think, sits with the writer. And I'm guessing we're going to talk about that more later on.
Miss Rambo, I had to chuckle because, truth be known, you were the one that provided this quote and the question. So you're always muddling the river waters. So thank you
Well,
for
I, you know,
thank you for doing that.
I think it's provocative, and for this discussion, I thought it was appropriate.
I agree with everybody. I think that, so with Miss Rambo's take that you could write for yourself. Think about journal writing. That's a personal thing. Very few people publish their journal writings, or they find out that let's put it like this, some journals might be published after that person has transcended and didn't really have too much to say about it. But if you want to be known as an author, it's more or less to have some kind of audience, some kind of followers, as far being considered a reader. So I can see both points. Okay, on this is basically piggybacking off of the first question of who is responsible for maintaining the relationship. Is it the author or the reader? I'm going to go to LaShaunda to start us off, please.
Well, I think it's both. The author, if they're providing the books, and then the reader has to, if like right now, because there's so many stores closed, it's hard to maintain if when books come out, put it that way, unless the author tells you that a book is coming out, trying to find them. So I think it's up to the reader to find the books and make sure that they're keeping up with the books too. So I think it's a joint effort.
Mm-hmm. LaShaunda?
Wow, that's a big question, especially in this space. I'm going to agree with LaShaunda, but I am going to say that for business purposes, I do believe that authors should do most of the relationship building, because there is such a big space out there with so many authors, especially due to indie publishing. And often I know a lot of authors are introverts and they have a hard time trying to amplify their voice. But there are other methods, newsletters, events such as this, social media posts, so they can get their readers engaged and interactive in their craft. Often when writers go silent for a long period of time, we as readers, we reach out. I've reached out to several of my favorite authors during this course of the pandemic to see if they were just mentally okay. Not concerned about the writing, but just to see if they're mentally okay. But I think that goes to what LaShaunda said earlier, that friendship factor. But I think if for a business purposes, I think that it's the authors, one of their, I go to work every day. And when I go to work, it's my due diligence to make sure that my students are educated and that I provide the proper curriculum and I am doing what is mandated by my contract. So I think for a business purpose, I think that authors, they have that reach and that outlet to make sure that they are connecting with their reader in some platform.
Mm-hmm. And Maya, the avid, passionate super reader.
I'm going to agree with both of my fellow panelists that it does go both ways. There are authors, like they said, they're kind of shy, and some may don't even want to go on social media. You may have to hire someone to maintain those author-reader relationships. I know, it's, like I said, sometimes it's hard. Some are shy. Some are very anti-social media. Some maybe know a little about social media, but don't know how to really navigate it. So that's where you have to hire someone, or even to get the word out that their book is out. This is where, LaShaunda and LaSheera come in, where they're publicists. There are... even if you're not with like a big five or with a publishing company, you still got to go out there and promote the book. And that's why we have events like Black Ink, to make sure that we make sure all the voices are onto the table. And if the reader enjoys the book and embraces it, not only they're going to embrace and try to have a relationship with that writer, they're going to tell their friends about it. They're going to go on social media, or like me, go on my blog or go on my Instagram or whatever and say, hey, you need to read this book. So I think it definitely goes both ways.
Miss Rambo, would you like to weigh in on this?
Oh, sure. I'm on the side of saying I'm pretty sure, from my point of view, that the relationship is initiated and the gut work is done by the writer or his or her, appointees, apostles, publicists, whatever word you want to use. The people will write, readers will write to the author, and it then becomes the writer's responsibility to respond. And it's particularly important, I think, when the writer is working with someone who's younger and who's new and who's feeling their way. And so many, you can look at the greats and name their disciples. Gwen Brooks, Donnell Lee, whose second name I don't do well, Maury Evans, Toni Morrison, certainly Gail Jones, and so forth and so on. So the writer is responsible for making sure that those connections, they have to be available and they have to be responsive and responsible. The reader, I think, just as you point out, and I certainly agree, I know when I finished, most recently, when I finished Nathaniel Black's The Coming, I called up everybody I knew. Get this book. I have to read this book. This is amazing. So I think the reader has the responsibility and just automatically will tell friends and certainly recommend the book for the book club reading and that kind of thing. So, but I do think the weight falls on the writer. And now that you have Zoom, the writer can go to all the book club meetings. Well, not all, but go to as many book club meetings as they're invited to, with much less difficulty. I mean, before you had to get in the car and go someplace or whatever. I had the good fortune to watch Nikki Giovanni, who was one of your keynotes a couple of years ago, in the very early part of her career before she was with, real high-polluting press and had done, before she had done 30 books. And she self-published her first book, and we would sell it out of the trunk of her car on 125th Street. And that's basically how it started. So she's quite the entrepreneur, and is very careful about her reader relationships. So the way that I see it is, it's on the writer, and if you want to have a following, you have to cultivate it, create it, and cultivate it.
True. I can think back in regards to utilizing social media, and I've been fortunate. The ones that the authors that I've reached out to, like Bernice McFadden, when we was having our reading circle and we was featuring her book, The Book of Harlan, and I just gave her a shout out and she responded. So that was really fun. Another person that I'm in contact with on Twitter is Tina McElroy Ansa, the writer of Baby of the Family, and she's very responsive in regards to her social media. So it helps bridge a gap and helps cement a relationship between the author and the writer. So now let's look at some of the activities that enhance or muddy the writer-reader kiss. We have several different categories. Publishing. What would be a positive thing? What would be a roadblock? And if anybody wants to start off with this, you're more than welcome to come on in.
I have something, Georgette. I noticed one thing that had many relationships as in terms of publishing. Let's maybe one of your favorite authors was with a major publisher, and their contract ran out or they got dropped. They weren't selling as many books anymore, but they're still writing, but they're writing independently, and their readers don't know. They can't find them for one other reason. For example, I was at the National Book Club conference maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, and a lady who was sitting next to me at the table, at the dinner table, at the end of this, she was like, "Well, I had this favorite author, and I haven't, I wonder if he's still writing because I haven't seen his books in a while." And I'm like, "Well, he's not with a major publisher anymore. He's self-publishing now, and he has some new books that are getting a lot of, attention, at least on social media, on Amazon." And I had to show her where to find the books because that's the librarian in me. But and she was like, "Oh, thank you so much." So I think sometimes with publishing, especially if you've been with a author for so long, and all of a sudden you think that they disappeared, and it may not necessarily disappear because life happened. Sometimes they may not be behind the vehicle anymore, the vehicle that was sustaining them before anymore. And that's a thought. And another thing that comes to mind with a very, very famous author who's not African American is when controversies get into the field. Well, we had one very popular author whose views upset a lot of her fans. and there are a lot of fans who did not like what she said, and to the point of that they are now feeling conflicted whether to support this author anymore after they have been supporting them for so long. And like I said, it is not an African American author, but this person is a well-known author. So I think those are two that really stick out in my mind when I think about that.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, publishing, that could be a very pot when you're talking about different things. Sometimes it could be just as simple as the book cover, which we think is simple. But for that author, depending on, as my fellow Pelham said earlier, if they are under contract or if they have they're an indie author and they have a little bit more control, sometimes that can be a turn off. The title. There's been a lot of controversy, especially dealing with African American press, about the title of certain books and the cover. That's a whole panel discussion within itself. At one point, depends on who your demographics or who you're gearing your writing to, because everybody have their own niche, so to speak. It could be very positive, but you may get a lot of negative press. And oftentimes that propels the whole entire conversation, and that's what people want. But you have to realize, and you have to come to understand it with yourself, with your brand, if that's particularly who you are and where you see yourself in the long run. Because just as anyone else, we all evolve. I'm not the same person. Unfortunately, I don't have the same waist size I was when I was 21. But a lot of my thoughts and my philosophies have really evolved since the age of 21. So you have to see yourself in the future, because you are a brand as an author. And whether you're with your indie publishing, you're a hybrid, or you are with one of the quote unquote major publishers, you have to see your brand and realize who you are, and if you have room to evolve in publishing. And if you are doing anything that may disrupt that brand in the future, I really think that that's something that all authors should take in consideration.
That's interesting. Yes. Anybody else in regards to comments in regards to publishing? Because I do have a question from the audience that sort of ties in with modeling relationships that I'd like to pose.
I'll say something. With publishing, I know when I first got into books, promoting them and stuff, authors were publishing once a year. You got a book out once a year, and that's how it worked. Now with the indie publishing, you can make whatever schedule you want, and sometimes readers have issues because they're used to the indie people who can publish how many times they want, 3 or 4 times a year, comparing them to the people who are with publishers. If they don't have that contract to publish 3 or 4 times a year, they only gonna get out one book. That's what you're gonna get. The big publishers don't publish that fast. And so a lot of readers, have conflicts with the authors if they're with a big publisher and they want to know, well, how come we only getting one book, and so putting out 2 or 3 books, the author has no say over that. Now, indie author does, but sometimes, like I tell my clients, don't get into the habit of putting out so many books at a time when you can't keep up with that. Because once you train your reader that they're going to get a book every quarter, they want their book every quarter. They don't care. If not, then they're going to move on to the person who's going to give them that book. So I think that readers have to be conscious of publishing schedules. Some people have no say over their schedules, and some people do. So that's my little 2 cents.
Okay, that's a good 2 cents. That's also interesting. Anybody else in regards to publishing that wants to weigh in?
I wanted to comment on what my previous panelist just said and emphasize the difference between self-publishing and being in a publishing house. And what she says is you have so much less control. And when you don't have control over your product, of course, the person who does is paramount. So they can say, but when you publish for yourself, you can release as quickly or as frequently or as infrequently as you want. and I don't really see the reader as having much control over that. To use an analogous situation, I know Stevie Wonder used to put out an album every other year. Mm-hmm. So, you got into in fact, it was every other year that Toni Morrison, they were kind of in sync for a while. And it had to do with what's available as well as how fast can you produce a product. That's the other factor that we don't talk about. The book has to be written for me to read it.
Very true. And are you putting out quality or quantity? That's a major thing too, because I think the majority of us appreciate good writing. I know I do. But I want to pull in one of the audience questions that ties into this muddying the relationships. What about airing or not airing political positions or beliefs? And
I'll start.
okay, thank you.
Well, I work for the government, so that was one of the no-nos we couldn't do on Facebook or social media. So I just kept that out of my thing. I don't talk about. But this last year, sometimes you just gotta get pulled into the darkness, But I lost a lot of authors because of their political views, and they got really, really dark. A lot of them got really dark, and I realized that I didn't need that in my feed. I didn't need that in my mind, and I didn't need to support you if you felt that way about me. Most of the time, it got personal, And so I think that if you're going to talk about how you feel, beliefs, or whatever, you have to be prepared for what happens after that. You have the right to say whatever you want to say. It's free, what is it? Free speech. But there are consequences to whatever you do. And so you have to be prepared for that. If you're going to be dogging out a race of people, then you need to be prepared for that race of people to, if they were supporting you, to keep moving and stop supporting you, or come on your place and bless you out, as some people say. So you have to be prepared for whatever your actions are, when it comes to whatever you put on social media. You're free to say whatever you want, but there are, like I tell my kids, there are consequences to your actions. So just be prepared for that.
Okay, LaShaunda, would you like to weigh in on this?
Oh, I totally agree. I stopped supporting various authors this year, sharing information or purchasing books, and it was due to their beliefs. And I think a lot of people felt very comfortable in certain climates to advocate for their beliefs. And you have the right, and I have the right to keep my money and to keep my sharing power at my own disposal. And I do feel that some authors are bordered. They teeter-tottered because they didn't want to lose their readers. But in the end, their so to speak, their true colors and their true opinions were known. And I think that a lot of people avoided that whole climate. And, we haven't talked about this, but with RWA, with Romance Writers of America, there was a lot of controversy within their organization this year. And so it made people take stands based on what some of the prior leadership had said and not said. So this year, I would say not this year, but 2020, what was the year of the, okay, you can no longer hide. You can no longer hide in the closet. And we as readers and supporters were able to see exactly where people true hearts and their true opinions lied. And so it did cause a lot of controversy. But I want, for one, I appreciate your honesty, sweetie. So that way I know where to spend my dollars. That's the way I see it. Because I spend a lot of money in books, and there are a lot of books that are written. So I appreciate when people show who they are, so I can support my one click. Do I think it's wise? It's probably not wise for them. And I think that also some people lost contracts this year. They lost publishing contracts. They lost promotional opportunities because of what they said or what they had written somewhere in social media land, regardless if they deleted, because we all know nothing is ever truly deleted in social media land. And so I think in the future, these lessons may cause other people to really think about what they say. But, I wonder about that. I wonder about that because then am I really seeing the heart of that person?
Right. It's they could be putting out things that they know that will make $1 because they have a following. But when they show their true self, that's where the buck stops.
You saw a lot of people this year retracting statements. I've never seen so many people retract statements. But in doing so, often they only made their plight worse because they weren't good at it. And so you still saw their true heart and their true nature. I do believe in giving people second chances. However, those words, and they're authors, they're writers, the words really spoke volumes to me. And
right.
Go.
Maya, do you have any words to say on this?
Coming from our very point, there are people, there are authors, they don't care what they say. They'll read them or their books regardless. But I am not the one to judge what they read or write. But personally, for me, if they say something offensive that is harmful to people who look like me, or even people who are not like me, like the LGBT community, or to Muslims, or to any one of those, no, I probably would not be supporting them. And a lot of the times, I probably wasn't supporting them to begin with because I probably not kind of figured it out. Probably had already streamlined my reading taste to reflect my views. So, but I can't tell a patron, oh, you shouldn't read John Grisham because of this, or you shouldn't read J.K. Rowling because of this, or you shouldn't read this person because of this. I can't do that because that is a patron's decision whether they want to read them or not. But as for me, if they do something offensive, like I just mentioned J.K. Rowling and what she said about the LGBT community, luckily I never read Harry Potter, so it didn't affect me, but I do know that a lot of my lesbian gay friends, it bothered them because they were big. They're big Harry Potter fans, and they're still trying to figure out how to handle that. So, yeah.
As a librarian, as an archivist, we cannot censor. We have to leave it up to our patrons to determine that, regardless of how we feel in the public eye. But personally, we have a choice. So.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Miss Rambo, I know you always have something to say, so
I
want to
get on the question, of course, because most recently we read The Fire Next Time and Eddie Glaude's book on Begin Again are both tomes that deal with very strong political opinions. Of course, I tend to agree with both of them, and both of them write well, but the fact of the matter is, I really believe that if James Baldwin had written a philosophy which was antithetical to what he did write, and that which I agree with, he writes so well, I think I would read it. So I don't dismiss people who don't agree with me. In fact, I'm interested in getting clarification or a better understanding of why they think as they think. And certainly this last week has given testimony to trying to comprehend where people are coming from. So I don't automatically dismiss somebody because they have an opinion that's different or that I find offensive. That's just my weigh in on that particular point. If I do know that people don't, and I certainly do avoid certain restaurants because of political opinions and so forth. But books are a different matter for me.
Okay, that's fair enough. And we have a couple of more minutes, so we can go through a couple more genres in regards to the enhancement or muddling the writer-reader kiss. Publicist. We have a publicist in the house with Miss LaShaunda. Would you like to weigh in on how publicists?
All right. Well, it depends on where are you talking about a particular topic? Are you talking about representing an author's brand or representing your brand, or both?
What do you feel?
Well, personally, I feel like when you're working with a person, you are representing their brand per se, especially someone knows that you're working with them. So sometimes you may work behind the scenes. There may be people that you're working with that people aren't aware of. There have been people that I have worked with that everybody knew that I was working with them. So you have to be very cognizant. Like when you have events and they're attending your event, like I have literary events, virtual and physical. Didn't have a physical last year. Probably won't have a physical this year. Probably virtual. But also when I am curating and assisting with their event, you have to be sure that you are always putting your best foot forward. But you also have to have the customer relation skills. As much as you can strategize, as much as you may know different strategies and sessions, it's about being you and being authentic. Because people can tell when you are fake. And you also have to know when to give and take. Everything can't be your way. Everything can't be your way. So the compromise plays in part. Compromising. And sometimes even compromising with that person that you work with, especially if they're an introvert and you're trying to get them to do something outside their box, so to speak, and doing so in a very kind and constructive manner. Because if you push someone out too quickly, it will be, for lack of better vernacular, a hot mess. And everything will fall apart. So you have to be very cautious because that's also part of their brand. And putting someone in a situation that can be detrimental to them. And it doesn't have to be all times financial. It could be spiritually, emotionally. Because I'm from the point that all opportunities aren't blessings. I've had several opportunities I took and I regretted them, and I've had opportunities I've declined and I did not regret them. Because you have to know who you are and whose you are and what you stand for. And that same token, you also, when you're working with people, you have to know who they are as well and what they stand for. So putting people in a situation that's going to cause sometimes socially, emotionally, or financial harm just isn't to their best benefit, and neither is it to you. I don't know if I answered that question like you wanted to, but I have.
That's fine. That was good. That works. But LaShaunda, would you like to weigh in also since you do book promotions?
I have to unmute myself. LaShaunda said a lot that was very helpful because you have to be careful on your core values. When I started doing book promotion, my core values was tested because one of my friends was doing erotica, and I had to decide if I was going to promote erotica or not promote erotica. And the reason most people think that I hated erotica, I like a good erotica every now and then. But the issue with erotica was the covers. I still promote children books. So I want a child to be able to come to my website and see children books. Mm-hmm. And when you go to adult side, you have to change your format to adult format. And I had, it's a lot of people mad at me when I made that decision, but it was my decision not to work with people who did erotica. And, which meant I had to cancel a couple of clients because they were getting into erotica. That was a big hot thing for a while. And I lost a lot of money on that, but I had to stick to my values and stick to what I wanted to offer to my community. And sometimes you have to do that as a writer and as a promoter or a publicist. You can't, all money ain't good money.
Very true.
And it was hard because I had friends they was mad. I got cussed out by a big top best-selling author, went off on me. I thought that my life was going to be over and she was going to shut me down, but she didn't. I'm still here, but I realized that was the decision I had to make because I wanted to keep my stuff family friendly, put it that way. We have some hot romances, but the covers didn't say that. So, it was okay with that. And so that was a decision that I had to make, and I continue to, because even I don't do the magazine anymore. I still say, well, I still got to put that. I don't want to put naked booties on social media. That's just me. That's my choice, and that's and I have to stick to that. Sometimes people try to slide it under there, and I have to come back and give them their money back. They be like, "You gonna give me my money back?" Yes, I'm gonna give you your money back, because that's not what I do. And so you have to be able to stick to your guns and know what your guns are, because like I said, all money ain't good money.
Very true. Very true. Thank you. I also want to, on the end of the publicist is like self-promotion and author availability. And I want to sort of tie in our book circle, our reading circle, in regards to who we read and who we help promote. I mentioned that we do classics, but we also do local authors. And one author that I'd love to blow up, who is a major part of the Black Ink Book Festival, is Savannah Fryerson. She will be, yes, thank you. She will be our featured author, and she will be meeting us virtually in February. For those that do not know, she is a romance novelist, and she will be featured in the month of February, the month of love, along with the Black History Month. So I just wanted to shout that out also. So I think that book clubs, street teams, they have a lot to do with helping promote whether a book makes it or not, and getting that word out there to other people that might have not had known about the author or etc. And Ms. Rambo, would you like to weigh in, being our co-coordinator of the Dr. Conseula Francis Reading Circle?
Every opportunity to talk, I'm happy. I want to emphasize a number of things about having reading circles and book clubs and occasions when people get together. One of the advantages for me of having a book club in terms of what it means for a reader is, one, to get together with people who also like to read. Readers like talking to readers, so I think that's a healthy forum for that. But the other part is establishing some sort of discipline about reading. I mean, I know we're not in school, and so we don't have to have the book read by Friday. So sometimes we start a book and put it over in the corner and don't finish. But being in a reading circle or book club or wherever readers congregate makes it more imperative that you meet a certain deadline, so there are expectations and there's a rigor to it that as a let alone individual reader without anybody else to be accountable to or for or with, however you want to frame it, I think elevates your reading. And then there is the fact that I've read books and gone to a book club meeting and discovered that I missed a whole major thing. It may have been defined in just one sentence or something, but a whole major concept in a book I missed. And so when I go to the book club and I'm talking with somebody else and they say, oh, what about this, that, or the other? And I'm like, I didn't even see that. So there's an additional set of eyes and ears in the process. So I'm a big proponent of book clubs and have been in one or two in almost every city I've lived in. Yeah. Yay, book clubs. And I want to also say how grateful the book club is for the support that the community gives to the book club. In our initiation, it was originally the Charleston County Public Library. Our new home, we hope to be at Avery. We've been embraced and adopted by them, but it's very helpful to have a larger institution to help you with some of the issues in maintaining a book club, which does take discipline and time and thought and so forth and so on. And Georgia is absolutely wonderful at it.
Thank you, Ms. Rambo. You're making me blush. I received a question. I will put our contact information in regards to our Dr. Consuela Francis Reading Circle. And it is that time that we start wrapping up. Any final words from everybody? Anybody? Everybody?
Well, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to share. It has been delightful to be on this panel with such wise women who have so many different points of view. It's great when you can always get with your fellow book lovers, because I'm a book club person too, Ms. Rambo. So yes, anytime I can get with my fellow book lovers and talk about books, I am excited. So thank you all for putting together this wonderful event. And I hope that the rest of this whole entire event is as pleasant as I have been delightfully entertained. The sessions are great. The way you outlined it, you all did an awesome job. So I just want to give each and every one of you a hand clap, because I know that the time that you put into developing and implementing and executing this with the fidelity, you all did an excellent job.
Thank you, LaShaunda.
I want to say thank you too for having me here today. I've had a great time. I've been here since yesterday. I came and watched all of the programs. I'm one of those people, when I get invited to something, I want to be there for the whole program. I just love that. But I want to shout out to Savannah. We're talking about readers and authors' relationships, and I know that the reason I'm here is because of Savannah and the relationship I built with her, helping her promote her books. And so I just wanted to say that relationships are very important, and you should continue to build them with your readers, with your promoters, with your publicists. They make a big difference in your life. And I just want to say thank you to the Black Ink. This has been fun. I enjoy talking about books. That's my favorite thing in the world to do. Ms. Ruth opened my eyes to say that you give people a chance, even if they are some little rockheads sometimes, still read their books. And I'm like that sometimes. Sometimes people will cut you, and you just have to let them go. So, but I believe in giving people a second chance. Sometimes we do stupid stuff. But I want to say thank you again for having me on this panel. It's been a fun, and the questions were very thought-provoking. So thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you. And to continue the conversation, if any of our panelists would like to hang out in the lounge, please go and visit, and then also patronize some of our sponsors at the arena. Oh. And with that, I'd like to thank you. Yes, hello.
Oh, yeah. I just want to thank everyone for me the opportunity of being here. As someone who is from Charleston and was involved in some capacity with Black Ink since the beginning in 2015, 2016, and to see this format has been awesome. So thank you very much, and I have enjoyed being here, and hopefully next year we'll be back in person.
Yes. Well, thank you. And thank you to my wonderful panelists. This has been a very insightful and exciting session. And please enjoy the rest of Black Ink. Thank you.